When Hurricane Ian hit Florida about 2 weeks ago, I made a prediction in an earlier video that there were going to be a lot of people, particularly in Central Florida, that are not going to have flood insurance and that are going to be in trouble after this storm because it was predicted to drop so much rain, and the prediction came true. The storm dropped a ton of rain on Central Florida, and for a long time, I don't know how many times I've heard people say, oh, you know, I'm gonna buy a house in Orlando or Ocala, somewhere up in this area where, you know, I'm far away from the coast. I don't have to worry about hurricanes. It's not true, guys. You do have to worry about hurricanes. Now, you don't get the worst of the storm when it comes to the storm surge and the extremely high winds. At least you're able to dodge that part. But what you do get is you do get really strong thunderstorms. You can still get high winds, you know, 75 mile an hour, something like that. But the rain was going to be the big concern from this storm, and it turns out that's exactly what happened. And I don't like being the one saying I told you so in a situation like this, but this is exactly what happened, guys. And now the problem is, even though it's been a couple weeks since the storm, the floodwaters in this area are still problematic because of rising river levels and just this unanticipated amount of rain, and the problem is, guess what? A lot of people in this area don't have flood insurance. So we're gonna spend a good chunk of this video covering this situation and, you know, how this is gonna affect the real estate market here. So Orlando is in Orange County in Florida, not the same Orange County as California. We have an Orange County here in Florida as well. And according to FEMA data, only a little over 12,000 households in Orange County carry flood insurance. And that's only enough to cover 2% of the housing units in Orange County, because there's about 575,000 housing units in this area. So you can do the math on that one and just imagine how many homes got damaged in this area and think, oh, is this gonna be enough to cover the damages? It's not even close, guys, not even close. I see there's a place for sale down here. Let's go check it out. I'm in a new section of South Beach too, by the way, different neighborhood we haven't walked through yet. Of course, I'll put it up on the map so you guys can see. So there was an article today talking about this, and basically this is a huge wake-up call for people that live in Central Florida on how important it is to have flood insurance. And they're saying that people need to start factoring in flood insurance as part of the payment process when you are looking at buying a home anywhere in Florida now, particularly in Central Florida or areas that you never thought could get flooded, because depending on where you live, you might be required by your lender to get flood insurance. But in this case, and in these cases in Central Florida, a lot of these people are not in what they call the 100-year floodplain, and therefore we're not required to have flood insurance. So many people just don't have it. I'm not sure what we got for sale here, but there's a sign here and a sign here. I think it's this house all the way in the back. It's kind of hard to see from here. This is like a driveway, and then right back there is a house. It's kind of tucked away back there on the canal. This place was listed about 5 months ago for $3.5 million. They did a huge price cut of $400K, still for sale, guys. So now the $1 million question is, what happens if you don't have flood insurance like so many of these people? Well, there's a couple of programs out there that can help you, and I'm gonna go over some of them here. One of them is called IHP, and you can just apply for this assistance. I'm gonna have a link down in the description below. The link for it is called disasterassistance.gov. So the first step is you gotta register for this type of help, okay? And then the application is gonna ask you for your name, your social security number, your banking information, because they'll send you a direct deposit if you qualify for some of the money. And it's basically just free money, guys. And I don't know how much they're gonna give you, it doesn't say, but people who are, of course, affected by this could be eligible to get some free money out of this. And of course, I would advise to go ahead and do that, particularly if you don't have flood insurance. But I also see this as another opportunity, of course, where we could see some rampant fraud, because anytime there's free money to be had, you know people are going to try to take advantage of that situation. So now it's not just people that don't have flood insurance that are affected by this storm. One of the largest demographics that's going to have big financial issues because of this hurricane are elderly people who are either on a fixed income or who have retired to Florida and basically sunk all their money into their home. So right now, they're putting Hurricane Ian as one of the deadliest hurricanes in Florida's history and one of the most expensive. In fact, the only hurricane that was ever more expensive, it seems like, than Hurricane Ian was actually Hurricane Katrina. And so a lot of these people, especially elderly who own homes in these areas, their plan was to pass down their home to the next generation, their kids, their grandkids, whoever, somebody in their family, their heirs. And now if the house is gone, well, that's not going to happen anymore. And this situation is raising some concern as to, when you only have real estate as your entire nest egg, this is where all your wealth is wrapped up into one asset, this is how easily it can get wiped out. And that's a really good wake-up call for people to understand, because what a lot of people don't think about is your house that you live in is not really an asset, guys. It's a liability. If you're paying to live there, it's a liability. It's not an asset. Assets put money in your pocket, liabilities take money out. So you can see that this is not an asset, but it kind of becomes one when you die or you need to pass it along to family, because of the fact that somebody from your family can get a large lump sum of inheritance in the form of real estate that they can then turn around and sell. But if the property has been decimated, then that's not going to happen. I just want to chime in here on this one. I am a homeowner here in Florida, and I have an oceanfront condo that could be very susceptible to hurricanes. Flood damage is not a big concern because it's not anywhere near ground level. It's on a higher floor. So that's not really the concern, but wind damage or other types of damage that could happen from a hurricane is certainly in the realm of possibility for a property like mine. But the way I look at my property, guys, is I look at it as a place to live. I don't look at it as an investment. I don't look at it as a future lottery ticket. Yeah, sure, I hope one day I'll be able to sell it for more than I paid for it. But obviously, Florida's future right now is completely in flux. Nobody knows what's going to happen to property values here in the long run. It depends on how many more storms we end up getting over the next few years and, all kinds of things. But I personally don't look at my home as my one lottery ticket for the future. I hope that I can sell it for more than I paid for it. If I move out, I would definitely be able to rent it for more than I pay each month, and that's when it would become an investment for me. But as of right now, it's a liability. I live there. I have to pay every single month out of my own pocket for this property. So the point I'm trying to make here is this is not my retirement plan by having this property, okay? It's a place for me to live right now. Who knows what the future brings? But, my retirement plan is to have investment properties that pay me every month, okay? That's where the money's at in real estate. It's having investment properties. It's becoming a landlord and having assets. I mean, those properties become assets when they're cash flowing every month. So I just look at this as a place to live. And I think a lot of other people that move down here, or anywhere you live, but particularly here, because of this, showing what can happen if you have to go through one of these hurricanes, people need to be looking at their homes as a liability, guys, because that's exactly what it is. You can't be banking your entire future wealth on this and just pray and hope that one day you'll be able to pass it along to somebody else and everything's going to be fine. Because if that's your plan, it's a terrible plan right now. And just in Lee County, which is the Cape Coral and Fort Myers area, they experienced the 6th and 7th greatest increases nationally in the numbers of people 65 years and older in 2019. So this area has seen a huge uptick in senior citizens in the past 3 years, okay? And on top of that, Hurricane Ian battered more of the middle income and blue collar neighborhoods than anywhere else. So these aren't just like the multi-million-dollar mansions that you see in Naples all the time that really got hit hard. It's the blue-collar communities and these retirement communities that really got hit the hardest. And this is going to have to be a big financial lesson for everyone looking at this right now if you're looking to invest in real estate in Florida, okay? You need to be aware of the risks, and you need to have flood insurance, and you have to realize that if you're going to live in the property and hope to pass it down to heirs one day, that you could be risking your your heir's entire inheritance, essentially. That's on the table, guys, because people are experiencing this right now, and that's why I'm bringing it up, because I know this is some people's retirement plan. I know some of you are thinking about retiring in Florida, and you're going to probably buy a home here. And if that's where all of your money's wrapped up, and you hope to pass that along one day, just realize that might not be a possibility. And it's not just passing along the property to heirs or anything like that, guys. The other issue with this is a lot of people who live in these areas, since they're of retirement age, a lot of these people would be folks that are eligible to do a reverse mortgage, okay? And now they won't be able to do the reverse mortgage when the property is destroyed, or if you're in the middle of doing one already, then this could definitely compromise the situation now that the property has been destroyed. So that's another thing to think about, especially if you were looking at maybe doing something like a reverse mortgage in retirement. And the other thing to keep in mind is when you are a part of the federal flood insurance program, you're only covered up to $250,000 in damages, similarly to the FDIC. You know, if you have your bank account, if you got more than 250 grand in there and something happens with the bank, you lose the difference. And a lot of people who are in the Cape Coral and Fort Myers area, their average equity was about $316,000. So imagine, even if these people did have flood insurance, they're still going to be coming up short about 65 grand if they get the full payout. So even with the most protection in place that you can possibly have, you could still be in trouble. And that's kind of the point that I'm making here. And I want everyone to realize the risk of buying property in Florida in general right now. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, because I know many people still will, but this is a great time to really assess the risk to see, can you afford these type of losses if this potentially happens to you? The other thing is, a lot of people in these areas, especially retirees, they might have paid cash for their home and decided not to have flood insurance at all, thinking that they were probably far enough away or just take the chance. And those people are really the ones who are in the most trouble right now. And of course I feel bad for you. Even if you have insurance, you have your deductible, you have your hurricane deductible, and if you're a retiree on fixed income, you know, that deductible could be like $6,000. I mean, do you have $6,000 to spare on the deductible? These are all things you need to think about if you're planning on moving here one day. Another thing that I want to bring up, it's kind of a joke, but it's not at the same time, is there's this calculation they have out there called the Death Valley Index. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this or not, but what this is it looks at some of the area's most desirable real estate markets like Phoenix and Miami and Houston, places like this where the market's really hot right now. They pretty much concluded that by the year 2026, for example, Miami would be considered in this Death Valley Index, which basically means it's too hot to live here. It makes it so there's too many health risks living here in the heat like this, you know, people getting heat strokes and you know, stuff like that, which is kind of crazy. But as a resident here for 14 years, I can pretty much tell you guys it does feel like it's getting hotter here, so much so that I'm ready to start spending the summers outside of Miami. That's the plan. In fact, next year I plan on leaving Miami for the entire summer, just like I did in 2021. So I'm already looking at making plans to do that. So it's just too hot, guys. And I don't really like summer here. So if I can get out of here for like the 3 or 4 hottest months out of the year, that'd be great for me. So also keep that in mind if you're looking at retiring here as well. This park right here, it's a brand new park they just built over by the Miami Beach Convention Center. This is the first time I've been here, actually. It's nice that they have all these trees on the perimeter, but I wish they had more trees in the middle because, you know, on hotter days like this, it'd be nice to have a little more shade. So I'm kind of walking around the perimeter. Now, moving away from Florida for a little bit, a lot of people want to know, when will home prices come down? Sellers have been hoping that the market's going to come back and, you know, interest rates are going to go back down and we're still going to have bidding wars and all of this. Well, that's not happening. We're seeing more sellers start to get nervous that the demand is way down and it's not going to come back anytime soon. Well, I can tell you guys, anybody who's worried about that, you're right. It's not coming back anytime soon. Builders and real estate agents, they initially thought that the demand would slow down and then recover in just a few months. That's what a lot of people thought was going to happen. I even saw on YouTube a bunch of real estate agents that have YouTube channels. Oh, you should buy now because the interest rates are going to go higher, and you know, it's going to cost more money to buy a home in the next couple months versus if you buy it right now, which is true. So they're trying to pressure people into buy, but what they're not taking into account is just how long this situation can go on for. And that's what most people have not thought of, like these builders and real estate agents who were pumping the market as these interest rate hikes were going up. And now people are starting to realize that this is going to be a much more drawn out thing than they originally thought it would be. And the interesting thing about this, I've talked about this guy a couple times on the channel, but Mark Zandi from Moody's, he was somebody that was saying, oh, the market's going to be fine, this is just going to be merely a correction. Well, now he's changing his tune a little bit, and he's saying, well, now we're pretty much guaranteed to see home prices fall 10%, and now he's saying, well, if there's a recession, it's going to be more like 20% or more. So first of all, yeah, there's the first thing, if there's a recession, right? Well, we know it's a recession already, so we're almost guaranteed at this point to see a 20% fall in home prices across the country. Now, let me just restate, because I have to say this every time I make one of these videos. This is not going to happen everywhere, guys. There are markets that are going to power through this housing crash better than other places because of their local fundamentals. They have the jobs that can qualify for the amount that homes are selling for, and there's enough good going on in the local economy to keep things going. But that is not the case everywhere, okay? And the places where that's not the case is where you're going to see the biggest crash in home prices. That, along with the areas that just blew up during the pandemic. And the other thing that's funny about this Mark Zandi quote is he says, well, it's going to go down 20% if this is a typical recession. So I think we can all safely agree at this point that this is not going to be a typical recession, guys. This is the mother of all asset bubbles bursting at the same time. This is the global debt crisis coming to a head. There's a lot of things that are super messed up right now that can easily make this recession a depression, and possibly the worst one the world's ever seen. Because the last time we had the Great Depression back in 1929 could make that look like a walk in the park, because they didn't have this debt crisis that we have right now, okay? They didn't have housing prices that were completely detached from reality back then. They didn't have the money printer turned on full tilt. They didn't have any of this stuff going on, and they still had a bad time. So I think it's possible this could be worse. And to kind of touch on what's happening with the market, existing home sales now have fallen 7 straight months in a row, guys. So basically every single month of this entire year, pretty much since February, home sales have been falling. The amount of closed sales happening every single month. And what's causing that? The increase in interest rates. And what do we know is happening? The increase in interest rates are going to continue. So this is going to be an ongoing issue well into next year. You can bank on that, okay? Everybody likes to point at this. They're like, oh, well, inventory's still historically low. Yeah, it is. I will agree with that. But let's look at some key figures here to kind of back up what I'm saying. In May and June of this year, and this is according to Redfin data, the median sold price of a home was $392,000. That was the highest it was in all of 2022, okay? Right now, just as of last week, as of October 2nd, that median home sold price is down to $368,000 right now, okay? That's 6.1% less in just a few months. From June to October, sold home prices have literally fallen 6.1%. And in the middle of 2019, the median sold price back then was $279,000. So, in order for home prices to go from our peak in 2022 back to realistic 2019 prices, we would need to see about a 28 to 29% decrease in home prices over the next year. Well, they've already fallen 6%, guys, and I think they could easily fall by this in a year from now. And remember, the last housing crash, it took 4 years for prices to bottom out. So even if it took 4 years for prices to come down 29%, I would say bring it, because to me, that's like the healthiest thing that can happen right now if home prices can come back to 2019 levels. And just by looking at the math and the median sold prices here, I think it's pretty safe to say that this is a possibility at this point, especially when we see 6% drop in already just a few months. But guys like Lawrence Yun, who is the head honcho over at the National Association of Realtors, he keeps pointing to this low inventory issue as if it's going to remain like that, guys. It's not. It's not going to remain low forever, okay? Like we talked about before, life goes on, people need to sell, life happens, and real estate transactions are going to go on regardless of what's happening in the market, the interest rate hikes, and sellers who thought they could hold on, especially if the recession gets bad, they're not going to be able to. They're going to be in a forced sale situation. Go check out my video I did a few weeks ago. I named a ton of different reasons of why somebody would need to sell right now in this market, because a lot of people think, oh, it's not going to happen, you know, a ton of people have great rates, they can just hold on forever. No, they can't, guys. I named like at least 20 reasons in that video of why people would need to sell right now. And you're going to start seeing all of them come true little by little, okay? Just like I said, people who don't have flood insurance are going to be in trouble after this hurricane. Just like I said, interest rates are going to be in the 7 to 8% range by the end of the year. It's all happening. And I'm not Nostradamus, guys. I just watch the market. I've been doing this for a long time, and I can tell you where it's going. And this is where it's going next. You're going to see these home prices continue to go down into next year. And you're going to see inventory slowly rise up. Because if we look at the Fred chart of the active listings in the United States, it's slowly inching up every single month. It's not spiking up, but it's going up. And I think it's safe to say that into next year, we're going to see that chart go up, and that's something, of course, we're going to continue to track here on the channel. Now, guys, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more content from me, the best thing you can do to support the channel is get subscribed, click the bell notification below. That way you guys are alerted every time a new one of my videos comes out. And if you don't want to wait for that, I have another good one for you right over here, and I'll catch you over in the next one.